Oh, hello! Sometimes the lowest hanging fruit tastes the best because it was weighing down the branch because it was so big and juicy, and not because I couldn't think of anything funnier to do in this intro than to take a very low blow jab at the colorblind and how they see this game. They don't. So weirdly enough, the next mainline Sonic game would be another Wii exclusive. You'd think after Unleashed they'd keep going in that direction, and while that's kind of true here as Colors brings back a lot from Unleashed, it still feels like a very different game. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. They were dead set on making this a Wii game in an attempt to capture the Wii's more general and casual audience, so they probably knew that it wasn't a smart idea to try to completely replicate what Unleashed did. And they also wanted to cash in on the Mario and Sonic at the Who Asked for This games, so the game would be designed to be a bit more casual, which is a nice change of pace after almost most of the previous game's issues were about them being a little bit too ambitious. Thus, Sonic Colors would be a much smaller and simpler game, more straight up platforming, no other playable characters at all, and no gimmicks. Well, no major gimmicks. The game's setting and visuals were inspired by Disneyland as they wanted to make a theme in an amusement park. And let me just say, I'm surprised that they let Eggman get away with this bullshit after Eggman Land. In order to replace the other playable characters and diversify the gameplay, they came up with the ideas of the Wisps, power-ups that let Sonic do things that would usually be done by other characters. So will all this make the game feel lackluster compared to Unleashed? Well, it's been 10 years and this game is hailed as one of the good ones, so yeah, I don't know. I don't trust the opinions of Sonic fans. And I can make that joke. I own this. And this. And this. And this. And this. And this. And this. 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 Oh, and these. And in my defense, there are some people who stand by the opinion that this game is underwhelming and overrated. Because who would have thought that different people can have different opinions? Sounds like some kind of disease. So for those of you who have been diagnosed, just remember, my opinion is objective fact, and yours is stinky and belongs in the trash. The game opens up and immediately throws us into the first level without so much as telling us where we are. It's not a problem at all, but it's a little bit jarring to just be thrown into level 1, especially after the last few games have had very strong opening cutscenes. Also, I'm playing both the original Wii release and a bit of Colors Ultimate. I know I said I'd save my thoughts on Ultimate for a dedicated Sonic re-releases video, but this game is so short that I figured I'd use Ultimate as a way to add more for me to talk about, and as the way I revisit the levels after unlocking all the Wisps. I'll go a bit more in depth on that later, but for now, I'll just be using the cutscenes from Colors Ultimate because they look better? Anyway, Sonic and Tails infiltrate Eggman's incredible interstellar amusement park because after Eggman Land, I think it's fair to assume he's up to no good. And also, yes, I used that Eggman Land comparison again, because that level makes me wish I was born without thumbs. They find out Eggman has been capturing these aliens called Wisps, and Sonic looks right into the camera and talks to me specifically. Am I canon in Sonic? Is there someone behind the camera that we don't know about? Does he know he's in a video game? Has he seen the fan art people make of him? Sonic trashes this Ferris wheel robot that is definitely not up to code. The Wisps tell Tails that their planets are being pulled in by generators powering tractor beams, so Sonic goes to each planet and shuts down the generator. On the third planet, Eggman jumps them and shows off what he's been using the Wisps' power for. He built a mind control beam and oh shit, is Tails gonna be the next boss? Oh no. See, that would have been interesting, and it's customary for the bosses in Sonic games to be a low point, so instead we fight a spaceship. Okay, I'm mostly joking. The bosses are completely fine, though I do kind of wish that they had stuck with the amusement park theme, since it seemed to just kind of be dropped after Tropical Resort's boss. But I'm only halfway through the game, so hopefully the next bosses will be an improvement. It's the Ferris wheel again. That's just not good. So yeah, the bosses for Tropical Resort, Sweet Mountain, and Starlight Carnival are reused for Planet Wisp, Aquarium Park, and Asteroid Coaster. The only difference being the wisps that are available, and the bosses are just 10 times more annoying in general. Back to the story, Sonic destroys the last generator, but Eggman has enough power to fire his massive mind control beam at the Earth. But it backfires because a chunk of the first boss got lodged in the cannon. Eggman jumps Sonic during his escape using the wisp against him, and now this boss rocks. I love shit like this where the final boss uses your own power-ups against you, and as you free more of the wisp, music turns to an orchestral version of Reach for the Stars, which is just another thing I'm a sucker for. This shit just rocks in general.
Unlimited colors! Laser! Light! Rocket! Hammer! Frenzy! Final color!
Team Eggman blasts off again, the wisps help Sonic safely return to Earth, and you know, it's nice to have a lower stakes story. No earth-shattering laser or destructive demons or threats of resetting the world, just Eggman is up to no good. Kick him in the shins. The cutscenes reflect this too, as you can kind of tell the writers and animators are just kind of having fun with it. Not every joke lands, some are just words that are said with the cadence of a joke, or they overstay their welcome, but I enjoy the banter Sonic has with the bosses that probably can't hear him. It's just Sonic being Sonic, and it is fairly enjoyable, and I love this little pose Sonic does before the boss fights. Something I found a bit odd is that this game doesn't really commit to the amusement park idea. Like, only Tropical Resort and Asteroid Coaster really feel like they fit the theme, and Asteroid Coaster is really only on theme because of the roller coaster segments. The rest of the world is kind of just dull space in my opinion. I get that Planet Wisp is under construction, but Sweet Mountain, Starlight Carnival, and Aquarium Park just feel like separate themes. Not that I don't like these worlds, but it's just odd that only like the first and last world really feel like they're on theme, but maybe that's just me. Now the game itself is pretty simple, but that's not always a bad thing. It's a much simpler version of the boost formula from Unleashed. Now things like quick step and drifting are given separate sections in the levels, and this is to make it possible to play with a single Wii remote for those poor bastards who decided to try this. I used a Wii remote and nunchuck, and this game definitely feels like it was made with this controller in mind, although you can use a classic or GameCube controller. The boost itself is also way less prominent. You only get boost from these wisp capsules and killing certain enemies, meaning that there's a lot of time where you just won't have boost. Unless I missed something, but it was super weird and awkward at times to just be jogging along at a perfectly normal pace. You don't need boost for most of the levels though, as a lot more emphasis is placed on just standard platforming with a double jump being added to Sonic's base moveset. And I can appreciate the added mobility, but this kind of fucked with me for a few reasons. For one, the homing attack is mapped to the same button as jump, which is what it normally is, but for Ultimate specifically, I had to unlearn square for homing attack from Unleashed and Frontiers. And speaking of Frontiers, since my plans for that game are way bigger than any of the other videos I've ever done, I've been playing it in the background as I slowly burn out progress on that video, and as to not have it take too long after the marathons end. So I also had to unlearn that game's double jump physics, as it's just different enough to completely screw me over. The other problem is that sometimes I'll try to do a double jump but accidentally homing attack an enemy instead, which is kind of annoying, especially on this moving platform section. The main gimmick of gameplay is the wisps. You slowly unlock more in each world, which causes the capsules to appear in previous worlds. And they are these small one-use power-ups that are essential for exploration, and especially if you want to find the red rings. Laser shoots you forward, bouncing off walls and crystals. Drill lets you freely dig underground and underwater. Cube gives you a ground pound that alternates these blue rings into platforms and vice versa. Rocket shoots you upwards and sends you into a skydiving segment. Hover lets you fly freely and dash through trails of rings. Spike lets you stick to walls and ceilings while also giving you a spin dash. And Frenzy just lets you go fucking nuts. Most of these are pretty fun to use when you find them, and some of them are Cube. Cube and Rocket both just kind of kill the pace of the levels as they just stop you dead in your tracks, all for a pretty minuscule result. Spike and Hover are fine, I'm never upset to see them as the level's main gimmick. Hover is just kind of underwhelming, you move pretty slowly, and yeah, I guess the Lightspeed dash wouldn't fit in the base moveset, but that's pretty much all this replaces. And I just don't really get Spike. I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't feel really great to use. It's pretty stop and start, but maybe that's just a me problem. Maybe it's user error. Who knows? I don't understand it. Laser Drill and Frenzy are the main ones that feel great to use, and there's a reason that they're the first and last ones you get. They don't kill the pace or overstay their welcome. These swifts especially make revisiting levels more fun as having them unlocked when I'll let you access new paths you might not have been able to reach before. And the rest of the game is just some pretty standard platforming with occasional dedicated boost segments, which I never had enough boost for because I would use boost pretty much the moment I got any. The game doesn't really have any glaring issues, but here are some problems I thought were worth mentioning, even though they're all relatively small. The controls at times could be a little bit unresponsive, like a double jump or homing attack wouldn't come out even though I swear I pressed the button. In some levels it can be a little tricky to tell secrets apart from traps. I fucking hate this anti-gravity shit in Asteroid Coaster. The wall jumps feel weird as you pretty much have to boost into a wall to start it. There are a few times where pitfalls are blended into the environment, and sometimes levels just have kind of dickish moments, like how was I supposed to know that I was going to fall short of the spring? It looked like I was just going to hit it automatically, but no, I was supposed to homing attack it. But despite all that, Sonic Colors is a consistently fun time, which is why it took them just so long to free it from the grasp of the Wii. I'll keep my thoughts on Colors Ultimate brief, especially since I didn't dedicate a full playthrough. Sonic Colors Ultimate is a re-release of Sonic Colors that looks not as washed out as I remember it. I'll address the elephant in the room. This game had a dogshit launch, especially on the Switch. The epilepsy warning is not a joke, by the way. What a time to be on Sonic Twitter. Seeing all these insane graphical bugs, like holy shit, these colors do not feel so right. I mean, how does this even happen? But then like, some were faked, I think? This was back in 2021, so I don't really remember. But either way, this release was terrible. I'd assume that these have all been ironed out. I never had any problems both at launch and from what I've recorded, though keep in mind I'm playing the PS5 version and the major issues were on the Switch, so stay safe and avoid that one. But I think it's safe to assume that they've probably fixed all the glaring graphical issues that could cause seizures. So, assuming that the bugs that made it completely unplayable and downright dangerous have all been fixed and patched, what do I think of Sonic Colors Ultimate? It's Sonic Colors, man. What do you want from me? The only differences I can tell are the visuals, which I remember looking a bit more washed out, but I think it looks fine. The only thing I really don't dig is Sonic's model. I think the lighting on it is weird, but the environments are a very clear improvement. The UI is cleaner, which looks weird to me now, and you have all these choices for customization, which is pretty cool. You buy them by collecting these medals in the levels, and you go to the shop. You can also buy Big the Cat emblem, because when I'm on the leaderboards, I want people to know who we stand in this household. This version of the game also lets you gain boost by timing homing attacks properly, and even though it didn't change much, I do prefer having more boost, so I'll give this version that over the original. And I'm playing with the PS5 controller, which you can kind of tell that this game was made with the Wii's options in mind. The nunchuck analog stick has these edges that make holding straight in one direction easier, and the DualSense does not have that. And it's also weird how this game doesn't support D-pad for the 2D sections. That's just an odd thing to omit. And lastly, they added a new wisp, the Jade Ghost Wisp. It lets you float through walls by locking onto enemies. It feels just as context sensitive as Hover, but the context is different. Oh, and how could I forget these Metal Sonic races that really just feel like last minute inclusions. I mean, look at the screen. The screen looks like it should be telling me about hot singles in my area, not prompting me to race my loathsome copy. But who knows, maybe there's a bunch of really small details I've never noticed that make one just blatantly better than the other. But I mean, I don't care about all of that. I got work tomorrow. If I want to play Sonic Colors, I'll pop in whichever one is more convenient, and more often than not that's Ultimate because it's on the PS5. If you want to play Sonic Colors and don't have a Wii, this is a fine way to play the game. It's nothing ultimate, you're not missing a lot by playing the original. Hell, the cutscenes only barely look better. But this will give you Sonic Colors. I can't even call it definitively better or worse. I think that's just because a lot of it comes down to preference aside from the aforementioned bugs, but like I said, I am pretty sure most of those, if not all, have been patched, and if I'm not right, then I stand corrected. Avoid this one like it's the fucking plague. But no matter which version you pick up, you're in for a good time. The game isn't all that long, but with the wisps being added to previous levels after you unlock them, there's a good bit to go back to, and it's just really fun to pop in and play whenever you don't have enough time to dedicate to one of the bigger 3D Sonic games. That's 3 games I've liked in a row. This bodes well, but for now I get to stay in my delusion that nothing bad is going to happen to me, because the next game we'll be looking at is Sonic Generations. So, look forward to that, and I'll mention it now. I will look at Sonic Shadow Generations whenever that comes out in the fall, definitely after this marathon ended, but who knows, maybe it'll be out before the Frontiers video comes out, because that project's just getting bigger and bigger as I keep writing. Also, about Sonic Shadow Generations, not calling it that. I'm not calling it that.